So should the government intervene in the crisis that we're seeing within mortgages? So a lot of people argue no, because households take on mortgages at their own risk. They know the risk that interest rates going up would mean a higher monthly mortgage repayment. But I think a lot of detail has been missing here. So normally a bank would do what they call like a stress test on a household. So if you apply for a mortgage before this crisis, they would simulate what would happen to your repayments if interest rates went up by 3%. And if you couldn't afford it, then you wouldn't be granted a mortgage. So if you ever applied for a mortgage, that was the test that was put on you. Now, interest rates have risen way beyond that 3% figure. So arguably we're outside of the bounds of which households would be expected to sort of withstand a shock. And we're into a sort of slightly more scary and more concerning space where households are having to spend lots of money on their monthly mortgage repayments. We put out some analysis recently that showed how those repayments could go up by 50%. And the implication of that is on top of the cost of living crisis, on top of COVID, on top of a decade worth of stagnant income growth, is a lot of households just being unable to support this. So we found that around 1.2 million households would be virtually insolvent, running out of savings as a result of all of these shocks put together. So the question is, should the government do something? I think there is a strong argument that they should, because we have moved beyond the sort of figure that we would expect households to withstand. The question is, what should they do? Now, we think that there is a possibility where there is a forbearance agreement where a household will go to their lender and say, I can't afford to pay my mortgage, and they'll come up with a repayment plan. The government could intervene in this process and make it easier for both parties to find an agreement that works for each other. So there could be a bit of investment done here that allows for some maybe interest-free loans, or maybe some regulation that allows for households to ask for that kind of support without it impacting their credit score. So there are policies that the government should consider, and it's not just a question of a binary that they should intervene or they should not intervene. There are plenty of options here, and they should be considered.